Hi everyone, this is Theo from ParkerBlocks.com. Today I'm going to review the Take-Sumi ink. This is part of the Iroshizuku series of ink that is produced by Pilot. There are 24 colors in the series. This is the black color. Today I'll be comparing it with the needleless bulletproof black ink. They are both made for fountain pens. Now in terms of pricing, this 50 ml bottle, it costs around US $18, and this 90 ml bottle costs around $12.50. So this has more capacity and this is cheaper. So in terms of value, right now I can tell you that needleless bulletproof black, it offers more value for the money. But let's take a closer look at the Take-Sumi and see what it offers. Now the bottle design is really beautiful. It is like some blown glass. You can see the density of the glass. You can see through the glass into the ink that is inside, and right at the bottom there's this little tip here. This allows you to put your fountain pen in and get the last drop of ink. So that's pretty nice. So I think in terms of aesthetic, this is a very beautiful bottle. Alright, so let's see how the ink performs. I'll be using my Duke 551 fountain pen, also known as the Confucius fountain pen. This has a rather large fude nib, so I'm using this pen so that I can see the ink more clearly. So let me use this as a dip pen today. Now the bottle opening is a bit smaller compared to the needleless bulletproof black, but it's still very easy to put a fountain pen in to get ink out. So I'm just going to use my pen today as a dip pen. The Iroshizuku series of inks, they are actually dye-based inks, so they are meant for use in fountain pens. Since they are dye-based, they are not permanent, so they are not light fast. They will fade with light when exposed to the light. So if you want archival work, this is not the ink to use, but for writing purposes, I think this is great. So let's create some writing sample. The ink is very intense and I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but the ink is wet here. The drying time is moderate to slow. So the ink is starting to dry. So it does take a few seconds for the ink to dry. Let's use the broad side of the nib to put out as much ink as possible. Take-Sumi has a very intense shade of black. Now, the Japanese words here on the bottle, it actually means bamboo charcoal. So you can say that it's as dark as charcoal. So with the fude nib, I was actually putting out a lot of ink and it took a very long time for the ink to dry. But for normal fountain pens, it's definitely going to dry faster. Now, another thing to take note of is the ink, it doesn't feather on the paper, so it's able to retain a very sharp edge. The strokes, they have a very subtle transition or gradation in terms of intensity. So take a look at this letter T here. This is darker compared to H and E. And here for this letter, it transitions from light to dark and to light and then back to dark. So depending on how you use your fountain pen and at which stage you lift up your fountain pen is going to affect the gradation. Take a look at this letter S. So it transitions from light gray to dark and to light and to dark again. And here I drew in some quick lines. This area here, the end of the lines where I lift up my fountain pens, they are a bit darker, so they deposited more ink, and that's why it's a bit darker here. Let's try the ink on lousy paper now. Looks like the ink performs quite well on lousy paper. The lines are still sharp and there's no feathering. Alright, let's compare that to Noodler's Bulletproof Black. Noodler's Bulletproof Black is an ink that dries very slowly. It dries even slower compared to the Take-Sumi. I like to use this ink with watercolor, but usually when I use this ink, I need to make sure that the ink dries completely before I apply water. But this ink is waterproof compared to Take-Sumi. Both inks, they are very dark, very intense. I do notice a slight difference when comparing them side by side. It seems to me that the ink from Bulletproof Black, it has a warm tone, and for Take-Sumi, it has a cool tone. Let me put down some strokes closer to the Take-Sumi ink just to let you see the difference. The difference is not very obvious and can only be seen when you compare them side by side, but to me, Take-Sumi would be a cool black and Noodler's would be a warm black. Alright, let's see if the inks are waterproof. I'm going to apply water over the Noodler's ink first because this is supposed to be waterproof. However, how waterproof it is really depends on the paper that you are using it on, because on some paper it takes a much longer time to dry. Take-Sumi is definitely not waterproof. If you want to, you can actually use the ink for drawing and then add water later on for the water soluble effect. It can look quite interesting. So to recap, this ink is dye-based. It's not meant to be waterproof, and since it's dye-based, it's not meant to be light fast as well. So for archival work, this is not the suitable ink to use. If you just want an ink for use with fountain pen just for writing purposes, I think this is very good. But for drawing purposes, I think it's better to go with Noodler's ink, at least that is waterproof. You can use it with other medium. And I think Noodler's could be more like fast. So would I recommend this ink for you? Well, depends on whether or not you want to try out new inks. In terms of value, the Noodler's ink is more value for money. So let me add some water and see how the color actually blends to the white of the paper. It's a bit difficult to control, definitely, because once you apply water, sometimes the ink will actually just explode outwards. And also when you apply water over the lines, the ink, the lines, they start to feather. But it can be quite fun to use. So that's all for today's review. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I hope this video review is helpful. See you in the next video. Bye!